I have so many problems, unreal. So we're gonna open you up. Hi guys, what's up? It's me, Audra, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new, I'm not sure how you got here, but certainly I'm glad you came. And if you are new here, well, you're in for a treat. If you are a fan of chaotic, frenetic energy, you like horror, you like beauty, and some commentary on my odd little channel, I suggest you go ahead and subscribe. You may as well get in right now. For the low price of $0, you can get lots of free and entertaining content. What? Yes. Also, here are my socials. I don't know what that was, but here are my socials. Hang out. I put stuff in my stories, some weird TikToks, pictures of Bo. That's always fun. So let's hang out. Okay, so today is Terror Tuesday, and usually I was doing my face, but you know what I found out? My ADD won't let me talk and do makeup at the same time, so I can't keep my head together. But if you insist on me doing makeup, all right, here we go. To the terror. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. All right, so for today's Terror Tuesday, it was actually brought to us when I was communicating with Teresa is Dead. You see what I did there? Communicating, even though she's very much alive. And I realized I really wanted to talk about horror remakes and whether or not they're good for or bad for the community or somewhere in between. You know I'm gonna end up somewhere in between, right? Right. So let's get started. First and foremost, I do believe that there is a good part of horror remakes. So for instance, they can add to the story in a way that maybe the original couldn't do because of the times. So for Nightmare on Elm Street, Wes Craven had always intended that Freddy Krueger be a predator. However, at the time that he made that movie, he couldn't do that because there was a lot of hysteria going on, I believe in the Pacific Northwest and also on the upper like East Coast, Boston, New York area, where there were lots of teachers being accused of being predators in one way or another. It was a big deal, and he did not want to capitalize on that with his movie, so it was left as like this kind of implied thing. In the remake, they really touched on that, like really it was a little rough at times because there's a part where Krueger comes up, I believe on Nancy, and says, "You smell different." Ooh, I do get the willies. I got the willies from that. I'm so sorry. But they were able to really bring that portion of the story to life that Wes Craven had always intended but couldn't do at the time. Which the predator thing is relevant to the story because it would only make sense why the parents would set a man on fire. You know what I'm saying? They wouldn't do it just because he spanked their kids. Gotcha. And if you hadn't noticed, it's a little dimmer, a little darker, because it's Terror Tuesday. But the point was, while the remake elaborated on that, it did fail in a lot of other ways. One, obviously, the makeup. Freddy's makeup was awful. It wasn't the casting of Freddy, because I actually do believe that he was a good Freddy. He was very creepy, he was very scary, but the makeup was so bad. Also, I felt like the story moved along too fast. And what I mean by that is I feel like the original Nightmare on Elm Street, and maybe I'm insane, but I feel like every time I watch it, you could see the story build, right? It was just like, it was a building of the story. And the problem with the remake is it was taking into account old school fans like me who have seen all of the Nightmare on Elm Streets, and so they kind of tried to like almost pick up from where Freddy versus Jason left off. So it felt a lot like they were just picking up from there because they had the pills that kept you from dreaming and all that kind of stuff. So it just felt like they picked up from a different portion of the story, and they just kind of kept picking. So it was a weird remake in that they didn't really cohesively tell that story. And because they just assumed everyone had seen all of them, they just moved along and paced in such a way that you just couldn't really follow. And I often felt like they just they were very quick to be like, this is the problem, that's the problem, this is what's wrong, do this, look at our class. And they were just solving the problems very, very quickly and understanding where Freddie came from. And so to me, it just kind of in a lot of ways fell flat as a remake, because again, it relied on the fact that we would all be fans. And the problem with relying on that is like, yes, I'm a fan, but I also like to see a movie remade well. For instance, The Crazies was really well done. I love that movie. It is actually quite heartbreaking at points because you realize that like they're traveling together. It's even better than The Walking Dead, to be honest, because you just see that like this thing has taken over. I believe it's a government experiment gone awry, making everybody be like blah, blah, blah. And so they're not zombies. They're not zombies. They're just blah, 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 and they just start like fucking everybody up. So that is how that works. But I feel like that was a really well done remake. The pacing was the pacing was completely there. So it was well done to where you start out, you see the town, you see things happening, you see strange things going on, and you just see a story and a build up and a movement. You have funny moments, you have scary moments, you have heartbreaking moments as well. But instead of it just being like this track for track, they updated it. And another good thing about remakes too is that they can do things that maybe you couldn't do in the past just because the technology wasn't there. The technology wasn't there. So things that you maybe couldn't do back in the day, you could do now. But I don't think you should remake it just because you have technology, Child's Play, because it comes off like hot garbage. So for instance, when they remade Child's Play, which honestly I still haven't seen, I have watched a few different, Ryan Hollinger is like one of my favorite, he is my favorite YouTube horror person. I'll put cards here for him. He is immaculate and amazing, and also his accent is super fucking cute, and he's cute. Oh my gosh, so cute. Anyway, I'll put tags in here for his channel so you guys can check it out if you're a horror fan. But I've watched stuff there, and I just felt like, just upon seeing what Chucky looked like, I was just like out. I was immediately out because I knew what they had done was like, we have technology, so we're gonna just CGI Chucky. And honestly, what made Chucky so scary is that he wasn't CGI'd in the past. I know that sounds so weird, but he just was an actual looking doll with like people making him move, and also seeing everything from a perspective because they didn't have the technology, they had to do a lot of the perspective from the doll. So like the camera work was fucking amazing, where you would just see like he would be running and they would move the camera in that jerky kind of a way so that it looked like a small person or doll running. So that actually made that far more scary. When you move it into CGI where you can see everything he's doing, I just think that it takes away from the fright of it, because there was something about seeing it from Chucky's angle as he moved around, and especially as he moved around other people, was frightening as all get out, because you realize that they didn't even see this doll running around. And in your mind you're like, I would see a fucking doll, but would you? Maybe not. But the reality of the situation is that just, I think, turned a lot of people off. And if you're a horror fan, a lot of horror fans weren't even gonna watch it. They were like, nope, not doing it, because you already ruined it. Like, we saw what happened non-horror related with Sonic the Hedgehog when they made him look jacked up, and everybody rallied around and said like, fix him, and then they fixed him. I just really wish that they had listened on this with fixing Chucky, because making it all CGI, it just wasn't a good move. It wasn't a good look. He didn't look good either. Like, if they had at least done CGI and he looked good, fine. But he looked like hot garbage. He looked like a shell of what Chucky used to be. He looked like the turd that old school Chucky pooped out. It was bad. It was honestly horrific to me. Like, that was a horror right there. Just looking at Chucky, I was like, who okayed this? And then as Teresa and I were talking about with Halloween, when Rob Zombie remade Halloween, I did like seeing that Michael Myers had like a backstory. There was some brutalization that I found, like, now I can't really stomach at all, and I barely could stomach it then. Because, like, I don't know, I like certain types of gore. It's weird. There's gore that I can stomach, and there's gore that I just cannot. And there was just something about him beating the shit out of another kid, like, I wasn't there for. I couldn't handle it. But the cool thing about that remake, sorry, Bo's up to some shit. the cool thing about that remake is it did give you a little bit of the backstory on Michael Myers, which I actually appreciated because, and there are people who will argue with me on this, but the reason I appreciated it is because Michael Myers is a human being. Do you know what I mean? Whereas Jason from Friday the 13th is dead. So, like, he's dead. I don't need a shit ton of backstory on a dead guy. But Michael Myers is a human being, and having that little bit of backstory, to me, even makes him even more frightening because I kind of realized, like, this guy is like good, 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 and it's always been good, 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 and it's never gotten better. Like, even when he's in the mental institution, all of that, he's just never gotten better. He just sat there getting angrier. However, I felt like the pacing on that was so slow. Like, I feel like the remake of Halloween was like 2 hours long, and I felt like a good hour of it was just Sherry Moon Zombie, which, can someone please tell Rob Zombie she is a horrifying actress? Just stop. Just stop. I get it. She's beautiful, but, like, she can't act. Can we just? But the thing about that was it dragged. By the time you actually got to Michael Myers, like, while it was exciting a little bit, it was also tiresome because I just got too much backstory, if that's the thing. It was so long and drawn out, and with Sherry Moon visiting him and all of this stuff, just really only so they can find out that there's nothing there. And I really feel like they could have condensed that section into 30 minutes and then moved on to the actual movie. Because if you look at the original Halloween, like, the action doesn't even take place until, like, damn near the end of the movie, which I loved that because it was very suspenseful and it brought you to a heightened sense that when it did start going down, you were like, ooh, because you've been prepared for this the whole time. You've been seeing, like, Michael just kind of appear out of nowhere. He, shows up behind bushes or hedges. You could see him walking around houses. It was just stuff where you saw him, like, moving but doing nothing, or occasionally would be killing somebody. But for the most part, he was just, like, moving and shaking, and you just kind of were like, ooh, when are they going to notice that he's following them? He'd be in a car and they'd notice the car, and you knew that it was Michael Myers. And Jamie Lee Curtis's character is kind of looking like, what the hell is this car? Like, that's so weird. And then they just kind of continue going on with their lives. The remake, while it did take a lot away. And also in Rob Zombie's Halloween, I did like that they made Michael, like, huge, like just this big mofo. I did like that. That was a good inclusion. I feel like the addition of the brutality to a degree was both good and bad because it did show Michael Myers as, like, almost superhuman, which is fine. Like, I'm down with that because he is. He, like, in the very first one, he survived six gunshots. Like, six. Take that, 50 Cent. But in reality, like, yes, because he's fueled by some kind of evil, we don't know. He is evil personified, correct? Correct. But I just felt like in that remake, it dragged it down. While it added, it dragged. And it was one of those things where it was just like, if you could have done this and this, it would have been perfection. But you didn't. So while the new Halloween could add some more nuance to the story and could really show Michael Myers as the boy that he was, I feel like it took so long that when you got into the action, and it was very brutal. It was pretty intense and actually very sad and heartbreaking. There was just so much of it that was just absolutely heartbreaking. But once you got into that, it just seemed like it started to move really fast. That was the other thing, is there was so much buildup, and it was boring buildup. That by the time you got to the actual action, it was slow, it was boring buildup, and by the time you got to the actual action and everything that was going to go down, it just seemed to slide by, and you were like, well, really, this movie could have been shorter. But on a different note, I do think that there are horror films that, had I not known that this was a remake as a horror lover, I wouldn't have been introduced to older movies, even by the same director, right, by the same guy, or be able to look at other stuff, like find things like Vincent Price, like A House on Haunted Hill. I had zero idea that was a remake at the time because I was not around when the original came out. But I loved that remake. In all honesty, I really, really liked it. And I know there are people who, like, shit on it or whatever, but A House on Haunted Hill actually brought out a lot of effects that people still use today. So, for instance, that, like, movement that the ghost creatures made, which actually honestly came from, Marilyn Manson, his videos. let's be honest, that's where it came from, and then it filtered into House on Haunted Hill. Anyway, watch the Sweet Dreams video. You'll know what I'm talking about. But it brought in effects that we still use today, and that's a cool thing about remakes too. While the actual movie may not be fantastic, sometimes it can bring in some really cool effects that we can see. So House on Haunted Hill brought in that blah, 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 blah thing that was hella cool, and I really liked the premise of the movie and how like everybody's just kind of wandering around in different parts of the house, and you can just see that it's a situation. It was like a Scooby-Doo situation, guys. A Scooby-Doo situation, because the team broke up, and now you start realizing like things are happening and people aren't aware of the things that are going on, and that to me built up a lot of the suspense and tension, because you started to realize like everybody doesn't know that this guy is seeing a ghost here and then this person is seeing a ghost here, or because they were split up, they didn't know that the person they were talking to wasn't actually the person, which I loved. And so the good thing about that is it reminded me of Vincent Price, and then it also reminded me of fucking Thriller, man, because Vincent Price's and Thrillers, Laugh, all that stuff. So it made me gain a greater appreciation for actors in horror and directors. Now, I will say things like Psycho, which were shot for shot remake, didn't enjoy it. I feel like something about them bringing it into color made it less interesting. And I know there's going to be people who argue with me, but I really just feel like Hitchcock's original, that's like one of those, there's a few movies that are just very highly untouchable, and Psycho is one of those. I don't feel like it ever should have been remade, and maybe it was the cast, because Vince Vaughn, why? And that brings me to my next point, and probably final for now. This will be like a part one, but I feel like sometimes when they make remakes, it's the casting that messes it up, because it was like Vince Vaughn and Anne Heche, and I just don't know why those decisions were made, because to me they were awful decisions. Like, I was just sitting there like, this is the same woman. Didn't she say she's like an alien? Okay, so it was hard to separate those things, and I think that that's one of the unique things about horror is one of those genres where it's actually far more beneficial to cast unknowns, because when you cast unknowns, it's a lot easier for us to fall into the story, right? It's hard to fall into a story when you're looking directly at, Brad Pitt. If Brad Pitt is in it, for instance, World War Z, which, we'll talk about that another day, but because it's Brad Pitt, you just keep seeing Brad Pitt instead of this character and all of the situations. And horror really lends itself better to unknown actors or little known actors, or just like there's a community, right? Like Barbara Crampton. Oh my goodness. She's a horror goddess, by the way. All in all, I think that remakes have this they have a fully bad reputation, and I don't appreciate that, because I feel like we don't look at all the other little things that remakes do bring to the table. Like, I cannot like the remake, but I can also appreciate the little bits and pieces that come from the remake, right? Right. Because, like, I enjoyed the Friday the 13th remake. Why? Because Jared Padalecki's in it, and he's so fine. So fine. He's so tall, and, like, his hair, he's got the hair, and he was riding a motorcycle. Girl. And also, there's that comedic scene, which I don't know why more people don't talk about it, but it's the comedic scene where the two are getting carnal, and, like, the whole thing, like, he's filming it, like, with... y'all, you can't get more like meta than that. That's fucking meta. Come on now. So I thought that was awesome. I thought that was funny. It was kind of like this hodgepodge homage to like every Friday the 13th movie, which I enjoyed. I know a lot of people didn't, but I liked it. I thought it was fun because it was nice to be able to see that the directors obviously loved the movies and wanted to incorporate all that stuff in them. While it didn't go over perfectly well, I still watch it now. Like, I'm gonna be honest. I still watch it because I have such a good time watching it. It's just unreal. All right, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this. I'm probably going to be doing my Terror Tuesdays more like this. Also, it looks like I have a podcast, so I may just move this over there too. So we'll see. It's Audra at home, apparently. But yeah, I have a podcast, and you'll hear this. This will be the first one going up. So good times, maybe. We'll see. We'll see. All right, a huge, huge shout out to my patrons. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate everything everything that you do. I love hanging out with you guys over there. I love the live streams and the chats and all the fun things that we get to do. So also, you guys give me so much feedback and fun stuff on my videos that I'm able to release to you guys early, so I appreciate that. Everyone, thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Please be safe out there. And you know, it's getting hot, so like make sure you're hydrating. I mean, obviously not with beer like my dumb ass, but get some water, okay guys? Thank you so much again and again and again. I love each and every one of you. And until next time, deuces! Lord, I just said it without